Hello everybody. Today we are going to be talking about a chilling chapter of American history, the 1970s. But what makes the 1970s so chilling? Well, it's actually known as the golden age of serial killers. Now during this decade, we saw a rise to very infamous serial killers that terrorized communities and changed American culture forever. We saw a rise to names such as Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, the Son of Sam, and even the Zodiac Killer. Now these killers were notorious and are still notorious to this day for the sheer brutality of their crimes, but also for something more, because there was a psychological and societal impact that these killers created in the 1970s. But why the 1970s? Why is this important? Well, there were many factors. There were cultural shifts taking place. There was a lack of understanding about this criminal behavior, and there were also policing changes. Now, this all happened in a post-World War II era that underwent significant societal change. And with this change came the counterculture movement of the 1960s, which created a fragmented and different reality for the people that lived in that decade. With that mentality bleeding into the 1970s, which brought along economic issues and mistrust in institutions, and even an event known as Watergate, there was a certain vulnerability and tension in the 1970s. Additionally, forensic science and criminal profiling were still in their infancy at this time. There was no DNA, and even policing had trouble coordinating and communicating over jurisdictional lines. The killer, Ted Bundy, abused that lack of communication by committing crimes over multiple states. He evaded capture because of that loophole. Now here are some quick facts for y'all. In the 1970s, there were around 300 known active serial killers. In the 1980s, over 250. And within the 3 decades of the 1970s, the 1980s, and the 1990s, 88% of all known serial killers came from those 3 decades. So what came from the 1970s? What came from this cultural impact? Well, fear. And fear is persuasive. I mean, imagine your neighbor living a double life as a cold-blooded killer or a kidnapper. I mean, the way that this impacted society and the people in communities all over the nation. I mean, parents teaching their kids about strangers in this stranger danger that had never happened before. It completely disrupted this idea of suburban safety. And this fear didn't just impact the personal lives of people, it impacted the media. I mean, pop culture in the 1970s, we saw a rise to movies like Halloween and Chainsaw Massacre, which emphasized the fear that people had about these evils that were lurking around corners that you didn't really expect. At the same time, the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit was created, which paved the way for modern criminal profiling. Now, it wasn't just the police that were interested in this. It was the public as well. And that fascination continues today through podcasts and streaming services and TV series that have a fascination and fixation on true crime. So what did the 1970s teach us? Why is it important? What lessons should we learn? Well, it taught us, one, that we need to make advances in forensic sciences. It taught us that we need to have communication over jurisdictions and better cooperation with police departments. And it taught us that fear can reshape culture. The 1970s wasn't just a golden age. It was a turning point that made us ask tough questions about human nature and our own safety. Thank you.